Welcome to Fractured Chaos.
You know you've made a lot of bad decisions in life when the woman trying to destroy you knows your kids' names and your wife's gym schedule. Yeah, that's where we're starting. I worked at Vanguard Systems for 14 years. 14. That's longer than most marriages last. Hell, it's longer than my hairline lasted. Started as a nobody in a dusty little cubicle next to the bathroom. Worked my way up to vice president. Had a corner office, a reserved parking spot, and even a fancy little plaque on my desk that spelled my name wrong. Brian Williams, real professional. The funny thing is, I never thought I'd last more than 6 months at Vanguard. I was fresh out of college with a degree in business administration that felt about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. But I needed health insurance and rent money, so when they offered me an entry-level position in accounts payable, I took it. My first desk was literally a card table. My first computer was beige and made this death rattle sound every time I turned it on. My first boss was this ancient guy named Franklin who kept a bottle of bourbon in his filing cabinet labeled liquid spreadsheets. I remember calling my dad that first week, telling him I'd made a horrible mistake. "Just stick it out for a year," he said. "Get some experience on your resume." So I did. 1 year turned into 2. 2 turned into 5. I moved from the card table to a cubicle. Got promoted from accounts payable to junior analyst. Started dating Sarah from HR, now my wife, who always brought me coffee on Monday mornings because she knew how much I hated staff meetings. By year 7, I was running my own department. By year 10, I was sitting in budget meetings with Mr. Hawthorne himself, a crusty old businessman from the handshake generation who believed in 2 things: compound interest and looking people in the eye when you're screwing them over. But he liked me. Said I reminded him of himself before the arthritis and ex-wives. When he made me vice president in year 12, he slapped me on the back so hard I nearly fell over. "Don't fuck it up, Williams," he said. That was the closest thing to a pep talk Mr. Hawthorne ever gave. And then, just when I thought I was set for life, the owner, Mr. Hawthorne, sold the company. No warning, no heartfelt speech, just an email titled, "Exciting New Beginnings." Translation: you're about to eat a shit sandwich. Looking back, I should have known something was off when the new owner didn't even show up for the announcement. Just sent her. Madison Hart, mid-30s, stunning. The kind of woman who could make a priest sweat through his collar. Dark hair cut in that expensive way that somehow looks both effortless and like it cost more than my monthly mortgage. Always in heels that clicked on the floor like warning shots. Always in suits that were just a little too fitted to be purely professional. And unfortunately, very interested in me. At first, it was harmless. A wink here, a suggestive joke there. I thought, hey, she's just friendly. Nope, Madison didn't do friendly. Madison did threats. I remember the first time I realized something was wrong. We were in a budget meeting, me, Madison, and about 8 other executives. I was presenting quarterly projections when she interrupted me. "Brian," she said, "those numbers seem optimistic." The way she said my name, like she was tasting it, made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably in their seats. "I've run them 3 times, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They're solid." She tilted her head, smiled. "Maybe you could run them again." "In my office? After hours?" The room went silent. I could feel everyone's eyes bouncing between us like a tennis match. "Sure," I said, because what else could I say? "I'll email you the spreadsheets." "Oh, no need for email," she replied. "I prefer hands-on presentations." That night, I told Sarah I had to work late. First lie of many. I went to Madison's office at 7 p.m. She was waiting with 2 glasses of whiskey and no interest whatsoever in quarterly projections. "Let's skip the pretense," she said, pushing a glass toward me. "I find you attractive. You're smart, you're successful, and you've got that whole loyal family man thing going on." She smirked. "Very sexy." I didn't touch the whiskey. "Madison, I'm married." "And I'm your boss," she replied, taking a sip. "Looks like we both have titles that don't really matter in this room." I left that night with my dignity intact, told her I was flattered but not interested, professional but firm. She seemed to take it well, even apologized. Another lie. One night after a team-building dinner, which was really just her getting drunk and listing all the things she'd do to me like it was a Yelp review, she leaned in close and said, "You know, loyalty is optional around here. Job security, though. That's earned in special ways." I laughed. She didn't. 2 days later, I was copied on an email about departmental restructuring. 3 people from my team were let go. All of them were people I'd hired. All of them were good at their jobs. When I confronted Madison about it, she just shrugged. Budget cuts, she said. Nothing personal. But the look in her eyes said it was very, very personal. The next week, my parking spot was reassigned. The week after that, I was excluded from a strategy meeting I should have been running. Small things, petty things. But the message was clear. Play ball or get benched. Now, I'm a married man. Got a beautiful wife. 2 kids on the way. Mortgage, dog. All-American disaster. Sarah and I had been trying for years to have a baby. 4 rounds of IVF. 2 miscarriages. So much heartbreak I thought we might break under the weight of it. And then, miracle of miracles, twins. My wife was 5 months pregnant with our boys. We had just finished painting the nursery this soft blue color called Ocean Whisper, or some bullshit like that. Every night, I'd lie in bed with my hand on Sarah's stomach, feeling my son's kick, thinking about how I was going to teach them to throw a baseball and tie their shoes and be better men than their father. And here I was, standing in the rain outside Madison's penthouse apartment, debating whether to go upstairs or go home. I went upstairs, because apparently, when it rains, I lose all my common sense. Her apartment was exactly what you'd expect. Minimalist, expensive, cold, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city. The kind of place that looks like no one actually lives there. She answered the door in a silk robe, champagne already poured, like she never doubted for a second that I'd show up. "Finally," she said, pulling me inside by my tie. "I was beginning to think you were actually as boring as you pretend to be." It wasn't some steamy, forbidden romance. It was sad. It was desperate. It was 2 broken people pretending sex could fix things. Spoiler, it doesn't. It just makes everything way, way worse. I'd like to say it was just that one time, a moment of weakness, a mistake I immediately regretted and never repeated. But that would be another lie, and I'm trying to be honest here. It happened again and again, always on her terms, always with this undercurrent of threat, always followed by this hollow, sick feeling in my gut that no amount of showering could wash away. She called me her little insurance policy. At the time, I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. I found out what she meant 3 weeks later when I overheard her on the phone in her office. She was laughing, that cold, calculated laugh that never reached her eyes, talking to someone about corporate restructuring and cleaning house. "Don't worry about Williams," she said. "He's in my pocket, and if he ever forgets it, I've got enough on him to make sure his pregnant wife leaves him homeless." That's when it hit me. I wasn't her lover. I was her puppet, her pawn, her yes man with benefits. I couldn't take it. Every time I kissed my wife, I felt like I was choking on my own lies. Every ultrasound appointment. It was like Madison was there too, whispering filth in my ear. Sarah knew something was wrong. How could she not? I was coming home late, distracted, carrying this weight around like an anchor. "Talk to me," she'd say, those big brown eyes full of concern. "Whatever it is, we can fix it together." But how do you tell the love of your life that you've betrayed her in the worst possible way? That you've risked everything, your marriage, your family, your self-respect, because you were too weak, too scared to stand up to a bully? You don't. You just add it to the pile of lies and hope it doesn't topple over and crush you, until you can't anymore. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Sarah had her 32-week checkup that morning. The doctor had said everything looked perfect. Our boys were healthy, strong. We'd gone to lunch afterward, and for the first time in weeks, I'd seen my wife really smile. That full, radiant smile that made me fall in love with her in the first place. And I knew I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't keep living this double life. Couldn't keep being Madison's puppet. So I ended it. Told Madison it was over. No more late-night texts. No more accidental brush-ups at the copier. No more secret hotel rooms with tacky bedspreads. She laughed. Actually laughed in my face. "Oh, Brian," she said, like I was a child who'd said something cute but stupid. "That's not how this works." "I'm serious," I said. "I'll quit if I have to." She stepped closer, her perfume, something expensive and suffocating, filling my nostrils. "You won't quit," she said, her voice soft but sharp, like a velvet-covered knife. "You'll stay right where I want you, doing exactly what I tell you to do. Because if you don't..." She trailed off, letting the threat hang in the air between us. "My wife is pregnant," I said, my voice breaking. "With twins, please." Something flickered across her face then. Not sympathy, exactly, but recognition. Like she was seeing me as a person for the first time, not just a toy. "Twins," she repeated. "How nice. What are their names going to be?" I shouldn't have told her. Should have kept my mouth shut. But in that moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, I was getting through to her. Ethan and Noah, I said. She nodded, smiled. Cute. And Sarah's still going to that prenatal yoga class on Thursdays at Blissful Birth, right? The 6 p.m. one? My blood ran cold. I had never told Madison my wife's name, never mentioned her yoga class. How did you... I know everything about you, Brian, she said, cutting me off. Everything. So, let's be very clear. This ends when I say it ends. She fired me the next morning. Yeah. Walked into my office, handed me a termination letter with a smug little smile and said, "Guess loyalty really is optional, huh, Brian?" And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she threatened to expose me. Told me she'd tell my wife, said she'd accuse me of harassment if I made trouble. Your word against mine, she said with a shrug. And let's be honest, Brian, who do you think they'll believe? The powerful, respected new COO or the disgruntled ex-employee with performance issues? I was escorted out by security, had to carry my sad little box of desk items through the office while everyone watched. 14 years reduced to a cardboard box and a walk of shame. I told Sarah I'd been laid off in a restructuring, another lie to add to the pile. I spiraled. No job. 2 newborns screaming at 3 a.m. Bills stacking up like a bad game of Jenga. I was one flat tire away from selling plasma for gas money. Sarah never complained. Not once. Just held my hand and told me we'd figure it out. Even with dark circles under her eyes from being up all night with the boys. Even with the credit card debt mounting. We're a team, she'd say. For better or worse, remember? And every time she said it, I'd feel this crushing weight of guilt because she had no idea just how much worse I'd brought into our marriage. I tried to find work. God knows I tried. But Madison had blackballed me in the industry. Every promising lead would suddenly go cold. Every sure-thing interview would end with a, "We've decided to go in another direction." The worst part? I wasn't even mad at Madison. I was mad at myself, because deep down, I knew the first red flag was tied to a sledgehammer, and I still let it hit me in the face. 6 months passed, the darkest 6 months of my life. We had to move in with Sarah's parents, had to sell our house at a loss, had to watch Sarah go back to work when the boys were just 8 weeks old because we needed the health insurance. Every night, I'd lie awake, listening to my sons breathe, wondering how I was going to look them in the eye when they were older, how I was going to teach them about integrity and character when I had sacrificed mine so easily. Fast forward a few more miserable months. I'm at the grocery store, living off expired coupons and regret, and I run into Alex Cross, my old college buddy, Alex, the guy who once funneled a beer in under 3 seconds. Alex, the guy who cheated off me in Econ 101. Alex, the guy who, apparently, had just bought Vanguard Systems. Yeah, the real buyer wasn't Madison. She was just a figurehead. Alex was the man behind the curtain. We hadn't seen each other in years, but he recognized me immediately. Slapped me on the back, that same goofy grin on his face that he'd had in college. "Brian fucking Williams," he bellowed in the middle of the frozen food section. "No way, man. What are you up to these days?" What was I up to? Trying to decide if I could afford both diapers and formula this week. Wondering if I could stretch my last $20 until payday. "Oh, you know," I said, forcing a smile. "This and that." He frowned, looking at my cart. Ramen noodles, store-brand cereal, the cheapest diapers they sold. "I heard you were at Vanguard," he said, lowering his voice. "Executive level, right?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "Was," I said. "Not anymore." "What happened?" I hesitated. What could I say? That I'd slept with the boss? That I'd betrayed my pregnant wife? That I was a walking cautionary tale? "New management," I said finally. "Didn't see eye to eye." Alex snorted. "Let me guess, Madison Hart?" My head snapped up. "You know her?" "Know her?" He laughed. "I hired her." "Well, my board did. Against my better judgment, I might add." I stared at him, confused. "Your board?" "Yeah," he said like it was obvious. "I'm the new owner of Vanguard. Well, my investment group is. We brought Madison in as COO to help with the transition." He frowned. Starting to think that was a mistake, though. Turnovers through the roof, morale's in the toilet, and the numbers, he whistled low. Let's just say they're not what we were promised. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All this time I'd thought Madison was the boss, the one with all the power, but she was just another employee. A dangerous one, sure, but still just an employee. I didn't tell Alex everything right away, just dropped some breadcrumbs. Mentioned workplace issues, Inappropriate behavior. Massive HR lawsuits waiting to happen. Watched his face go pale, like he realized he just bought a ticking time bomb. Alex hated mess, always had, especially the kind that could bankrupt him. "Jesus, Brian," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Say what? To who?" "She made it very clear what would happen if I talked." He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then, what if you had protection? What if you had someone who could make sure she couldn't touch you? Like who? He smiled, that same cocky, confident smile from college. Like the guy who signs her checks. He asked me to help him clean house. I said sure. After all, I had time. Lots of it. That night, I came home late again. Sarah was rocking Noah back to sleep, dark circles under her eyes, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft so as not to disturb the baby. I almost told her then, almost confessed everything. The words were right there, clawing at my throat. But I looked at her. This woman who had stood by me through unemployment, who was raising our children while I wallowed in self-pity. And I couldn't do it. Couldn't add my betrayal to her burdens. "Yeah," I said, "just job-hunting stuff." Another lie, another brick in the wall between us. She nodded, too tired to press further. "We'll figure it out," she said. "We always do." That's Sarah, always believing in me even when I didn't deserve it. The truth stayed buried, my secret, my shame, my cross to bear. And in a twisted way, keeping that secret became my penance. Living with it day after day, letting it eat at me from the inside, that was my punishment, not hers. Meanwhile, with Alex's blessing and a few very careful moves, we dug up everything on Madison. Turns out, I wasn't special. There were 4 other men, 4 ruined careers, 4 shattered marriages, and enough evidence to build a bonfire that could be seen from space. Madison had a pattern. She'd target men in positions of authority, usually married, usually with something to lose. She'd seduce them, threaten them, use them, and then discard them when they were no longer useful or entertaining. It wasn't just about sex or power, it was about control, about having people at her mercy, about knowing she could destroy lives with a single phone call or email. One guy even had recordings, Madison bragging about owning her employees like she was collecting Pokemon cards. "It's so easy," her voice said on the recording, slightly slurred from alcohol. "They all think they're so strong, so principled. But wave a pink slip in their face, and suddenly principles don't matter so much." We brought it all to the authorities. Alex filed charges. Civil, criminal, the whole damn alphabet. Madison was arrested for harassment, abuse of power, and retaliation. Her mugshot? Let's just say she didn't look so smug without the Botox. When the news broke, it was like a dam bursting. More people came forward, not just men she'd slept with, but employees she'd bullied, vendors she'd threatened, assistants she'd abused. The company's stock took a hit, but Alex was smart. He got ahead of it, released a statement about zero tolerance for misconduct and a new era of transparency and integrity. And he offered me my job back. Not just my old job, a better one. Chief Operations Officer, the position Madison had held. I took it. Hell yes, I took it. After everything I'd been through, everything she'd put me through, that corner office was mine by right. The power, the prestige, the 6-figure salary with stock options, I'd earned every bit of it through blood and tears. "Smart move," Alex said, clapping me on the shoulder. "The company needs someone like you, someone who knows where all the bodies are buried." Poor choice of words, but I got his meaning. The first day I walked back into that building, not as a disgraced ex-employee with a cardboard box, but as the new COO with an executive assistant and a company credit card, I felt like I'd won, like I'd finally beaten Madison at her own game. I moved into her old office, had them completely redecorated, exercising every trace of her presence. New furniture, new art, new everything. And me? I got the position I deserved at the company I helped build. More money, less stress, no psychotic bosses trying to turn me into a side piece. Sarah and I found our rhythm again, slowly. With the new salary, we could afford a house again, a bigger one this time, in a better neighborhood with good schools. We hired a nanny to help with the boys, giving Sarah a chance to breathe, to find herself again. I told her the company had settled with me, a hefty sum for wrongful termination, a necessary lie to explain the sudden change in our fortunes. The distance between us remained, though, this invisible chasm I'd created with my secrets. There were moments, late at night, watching her sleep, when the guilt would rise up like bile, and I'd think about confessing everything. But then I'd remember what was at stake: our family, our future, the boys. So I buried it deeper, worked longer hours, brought home expensive gifts, as if I could build a bridge across that chasm with designer handbags and weekend getaways. The boys grew, started walking, started talking. Ethan, serious and thoughtful like his mom. Noah, loud and fearless like, well, not like me, like the man I was trying to become. Madison's trial was scheduled, then delayed again. Legal maneuvers, procedural tactics, the wheels of justice grinding slowly. But eventually they did grind. She pleaded guilty to reduced charges, got 18 months in a minimum security facility, a fine that probably cost her less than her annual Botox budget. But the important thing? She was done, finished in the industry, her reputation in tatters. The last I heard, she'd moved to Arizona after her release, started some kind of wellness retreat for powerful women, still selling manipulation, just with a different label. As for me, I wish I could say I became a whole new person, that my mistakes turned me into some kind of saint. They didn't. I'm still flawed, still weak in ways I'm working on, still capable of selfishness and cowardice and all the things that got me into trouble in the first place. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. Sarah and I renewed our vows on our 10th anniversary. A small ceremony in our backyard, the boys as ring bearers tripping over their own feet in tiny suits. When I looked into my wife's eyes and promised, again, to love and honor her, I meant it more than I had the first time. Because now I understood the cost of breaking those promises. Now I understood that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. You know, people always say, cheaters never prosper. I think that's true. But sometimes, they also end up in orange jumpsuits. While you end up rocking your twins to sleep, finally debt-free, finally guilt-free, finally free. Funny how loyalty's optional, until you figure out who's really signing the checks. I saw Madison once, about a year after her release, in the parking lot of a grocery store, of all places. She looked older, smaller somehow, less intimidating without the power suits and corner office. She saw me too. Our eyes met across the asphalt. For a moment, I thought she might come over, might say something, an apology, a threat, who knows. Instead, she just turned and walked away, got into her car and drove off. I felt a surge of satisfaction, of vindication, the great Madison heart slinking away like a beaten dog. Because in the end, I won. I took her job, her status, her power. I became everything she tried to destroy, and more. The corner office she once prowled now has my name on the door, spelled correctly this time. The employees she terrorized now look to me for leadership. The company she tried to use as her personal playground is thriving under my direction. Of course, there's the other thing, the secret I carry, the lie I live. Sarah never knew, never will know. It's the price I pay for our perfect life. The house, the cars, the private schools for the boys, the vacations in Europe. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake up sweating, the weight of it all pressing down on my chest like a stone. In those moments, I wonder if it was worth it, if victory tastes as sweet when it's seasoned with deception. But then morning comes. I kiss my wife goodbye, ruffle my son's hair, and drive to my reserved parking spot at Vanguard Systems. And I remember what Madison taught me, whether she meant to or not. Loyalty's optional, until you figure out who's really signing the checks. In my case, I sign my own now. And that's worth everything.